Hi, I'm Sarah Bradbury from The Upcoming. A real pleasure to be with you here at the 81st Venice Film Festival. Thanks for taking the time to speak to us. Maybe you could begin with a brief introduction to your film, Mistress Dispeller. For people who don't know anything about it, what can they expect?
Thanks. Hi, my name is Elizabeth Lowe. I'm the director of Mistress Dispeller. It's a feature-length film about a woman whose job it is to break up affairs under the guise of a false identity. She enters marriages that are experiencing infidelity, and she covertly befriends, whether it's the husband, the wife, or the mistress, to influence people to, to save the marriage and seemingly of their own accord.
It's absolutely incredible to imagine that this isn't fiction in a way, because I'm sure most people would have absolutely no idea that this was a concept, that this was a real thing. How did you first stumble across this, and what sort of sparked the idea for you of making a documentary about it?
Yeah. So I'm originally born in Hong Kong, and I was interested in making a film that took place in China just as a way to get to know mainland China and the culture better myself. And I have loved love stories for as long as I can remember, movies, books, and I was interested in telling a love story and seeing how originally a portrait of a woman navigating to society. And I thought the perspective of a mistress would reveal a lot about the structure of love and family. And as I was researching into mistresses in China, I discovered the mistress dispelling phenomenon, which is this new job that's only arisen in the last decade or so to help wives or husbands combat cheating within their own marriages. My producer Maggie Lee and I met, who's China-based, we met with dozens of mistress dispellers in China, and when we finally located teacher Wang, she was on the first day of our scouting shoot, she let us film with a husband, a wife, and a mistress on the first day of the same within the same marriage, and I was so amazed by that experience of my own sympathies shifting even in the course of filming over a day from the wife to the husband to the mistress, that expansion of empathy to figures of a love triangle that would typically be maligned and stigmatized, and you'd have prejudice against that, whether it's the cheating husband or the mistress or even the wife who chooses to stay in a marriage after she's been cheated on. I found that expansion of my empathy and trying to understand why people do what they do to be a really compelling and important experience. And so that's when I decided there was a film there. Yeah, also with my producer, Emma Miller.
And I guess for obvious reasons, sort of quite a moral quagmire in terms of how you're going to capture this, how you're going to approach it. There is this element of deception. How did you go about sort of getting people on board, building that trust, and of course, getting people to be so open and so candid in front of the camera, almost as though it's not even there?
Yeah. So because we knew that deception was inherent in teacher Wang, the Mistress Dispeller's work, because she's entering people's lives under a false identity, we knew that we couldn't reveal to in this case, the husband or the mistress exactly what the film was about or what teacher Wang's role in their lives was if we wanted to capture the process authentically. But as filmmakers, we knew we had to stay ethical. And so this was something that I strategized and brainstormed a lot with my producer, Emma Miller, about, okay, if we can't get the level of access that we do, or if people drop out in the middle, which we actually filmed with 6 other couples, and several of them did drop out midway through. We had to allow them to do that because they're exposing such sensitive and vulnerable moments from their lives. We were prepared to pivot the film into like a much more diffuse approach about love industries at large in China, or like focusing on multiple cases. Thankfully, it took us basically 2 years to finally, of filming with multiple cases at different stages of the mistress dispelling case, process, to finally land on a couple who allowed us in from the first day onwards. And at first they only promised us a few days of filming. But as with every documentary production, you start to, you build trust and comfort with the people that are sharing their lives in front of you. And they allowed us to stay for four more months until the case was solved. And the way, what we owed to them was that at the end we would show them the film. Because they were told at first, the husband and mistress, that this was a film about modern love and dating in China. And then by the end, they saw the whole film and understood fully what teacher Wang's role was in their lives and what the film was focusing on. And they reconsented to be a part of it, thankfully.
And maybe you can talk us through a little bit about the form and your approach to how the film looks and feels, because the look of it sometimes looks like a Wes Anderson film, like the symmetry that you create, these sort of different settings, the interiors, the home, when they're playing badminton, even when you catch her in that opening scene, with the tears sort of running down her face, it could be something very easily out of a fiction movie. So what's your approach? What's your sort of to get that incredible aesthetic?
Yeah, I mean, that shot of the opening shot of the wife crying in a salon, that was actually literally the first day that we were filming with her. That was the first day we encountered her. And I think it's because when you invite a film crew in to document your life when you're going through such a hard time, she's reflecting about her own life and why she's probably in here being filmed by people as she's going through this. But in terms of the approach, as a filmmaker, I personally am just drawn to visually sensual worlds that are drawing me in and appealing to the eye. And I knew a challenge with this film was that we would be filming in a lot of domestic spaces that we had no control over. A lot of conversations would be taking place, for hours on end over tabletops. And so that's partly why the film also takes these tangents out to the wilderness landscape in which China takes part in, and vignettes into other love industries, so that you're kind of getting a sense of the larger landscape in which these stories and these individuals are taking place. So you see the societal sort of pressures that they're facing and how love is commoditized and part of a marketplace. But also that we're all part of nature. We're just animals seeking a primal connection, just as these individual characters are, no matter what country you're in. In terms of the aesthetic approach, where it's very static and it feels very composed, I think that was because the film, in my mind, was always designed to have long takes so that you wouldn't have to chop up their dialogue and manipulate it, because that's something I notice sometimes in documentaries where it feels like the story's being constructed, or even the conversation's being constructed by the filmmaker. I wanted the authenticity of how the arc of a conversation unfolds, where things are left unsaid, or things that are said are not what they mean. I wanted that to be open to audiences to be able to debate and interpret on their own without so much interruption. So the stillness of the camera had a aesthetically seductive sort of feeling, but also it served a practical purpose on set, because I often would just leave the room and the whole crew would leave the room, and after we'd hit record, after we've composed the shot, so that we wouldn't interrupt or make the protagonists feel self-conscious in front of the camera, even though they were always aware that the camera was there. And that said, even though we're out of the room, Teacher Wang also told me, because this film has the camera involved, or this production has the camera involved in its case, people were trying to perform their best selves, their best versions of what they believe to be their best selves. And I find that very dignified, but you also see it slip up when their real negative emotions crop up occasionally, and it's like battling against the version that's trying to repress and present a better self. And I find that fascinating to see it unfold in front of the camera. That also was, I think, will be really appealing for audiences. It was very appealing to me as I was editing the film and watching it through and wondering, what were they thinking? What did they really mean?
As I was watching it, I felt like I was just on the edge of my seat the whole time. Like almost like a thriller or a mystery, or, when you're filming it and you're sat there, you must have felt the same. Were there any real standout moments, or moments that you were like, oh God, this is all gonna fall to pieces, we're not gonna be able to continue? Were there any other worrying moments too?
So many moments where sometimes, cases that we were filming did fall to pieces. But in this particular case, when we finally met the mistress, I was shocked at her appearance, because she's so beautiful and young and so articulate and refined in how she presents herself. At first, our crew actually wondered, is this an actress hired to play the mistress that the Mistress Dispeller wasn't actually able to convince to be on camera? But over time, as we were observing her and the way she was interacting with the husband, we all had to admit and recognize that, oh, this is real. She really has this entanglement with this man who's much older than her. And it seems improbable, but there is a lot of warmth and affection there between them, and a history there between them that we were witnessing in front of the camera, even as it was getting, their relationship was getting fractured. And that, to me, was, the skepticism that I felt as a production crew into believing that, oh, this is real. This is all like what we're capturing is extraordinary, and it's real people's lives unfolding in front of our camera. It felt like such a privilege and a very pleasant surprise. And I feel like audiences will probably go through that reaction too as they're watching this and disbelieving how could this be possible, and then realizing that yeah, these are real people in here who have so generously somehow felt okay with sharing their lives on camera, but in such a dignified way.
In terms of what people can take away from watching it, I was loving what you were saying in the notes. In a way, you can look at this as, okay, this particular phenomenon that's happening in this culture, but you can also link it to, economic change. How does that economic growth that China has seen impact a society, and what do you do when you see changes like that? And it gives you sort of a way in to reflect on much bigger issues. And like you were saying at the beginning, on our ideas of love and marriage, and have we been fed sort of fairy tales, and is there a way to kind of perhaps have a more realistic view of relationships without giving up on the idea of romance?
Yeah, I mean, in this film, if you look at it, it's a portrait of a middle-aged couple struggling to keep the flame alive, and then the husband suddenly feels alive when he's around this younger woman who is giving him affection and attention that maybe faded over time in his own marriage. I mean, for me, what was so beautiful about this story is that all these desires that we have to find connection and love, those are things that I think people are struggling with around the world. There are people who are super lucky who found it, but even they are still struggling through it. Like, I think one of the lecturers in a love college in China says is like, everybody is fumbling. When it comes to love, it's like viewing flowers in the fog. Everybody is fumbling through. Maybe that was in one of the outtakes, but that was something that really stuck with me, that I found to be really profound and true. Like even as I was making this film, it felt like I did not have the answers to how these people should be behaving as they were figuring out their lives. And I think that kind of messiness of life, as we try to impose order on it, whether through a Mistress Dispeller or through the institution of marriage, or when you stray from it by participating in something that is outside of a sanctioned arrangement of love or affection, I think it's always interesting to witness when you're in the cracks of what is allowed and what is not allowed.
And just very quickly, what does it mean to you to have the film here at Venice Film Festival? And, after working on this project, what I'm going to be doing next. What do you think you'll take away from working on this to your next thing?
This is my second feature-length film, and it's at Venice, and it's such an honor and incredible privilege to be here. I can't believe it. Yeah, I'm going to work on my third film, although I don't know what it will be yet. Yeah, but it's been amazing to be here, and like a time for a lot of reflection and processing about what I want to do next.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all that with me. I can't wait for everyone else to see the film, and really enjoy your time here in Venice.
Thanks so much.